I still remember the sound of the doorbell cutting through my sleep at exactly 6:02 a.m. It wasn't a polite ring. It was long, aggressive, impatient. The kind that says, "I'm not leaving." I had barely slept that night. The day before, I had officially resigned from my job. I had also done something that, for years, I didn't have the courage to do. I canceled every automatic bank transfer I had been sending to my husband's family. For 3 years, part of my salary went directly to my mother-in-law. At first, it was temporary help. Then it became family duty. After that, it turned into something unspoken but mandatory. When I opened the door, she was standing there in a heavy coat, hair tightly pulled back, lips pressed thin with anger. "You thought you could do this quietly?" she asked, stepping inside without invitation. My husband, Andre, stumbled out of the bedroom, confused. "Mom, what are you doing here?" She ignored him and stared directly at me. "You quit your job?" she demanded. "Yes," I said calmly. "And you stopped the transfers?" "Yes." Her eyes widened like I had confessed to a crime. For years, I worked in a finance firm. The hours were brutal, the pressure constant. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, and weekends. Meanwhile, every month, a portion of my hard-earned money went to support my husband's mother and his younger sister. At first, I didn't mind helping. I believed in supporting family. But gradually, I noticed something strange. The emergency expenses were frequent. The temporary problems never ended. New furniture appeared in her apartment. Her sister took expensive vacations. Yet when I asked questions, I was accused of being selfish. Andre always said the same thing: "It's just until things stabilize." But things never stabilized. 2 weeks before I resigned, I had a meeting with my boss. He told me I was on track for a promotion, but only if I committed to even longer hours and weekend availability. I went home and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked exhausted, not just physically, emotionally. What was I working for? Not savings, not investments, not our future. I was financing a lifestyle that wasn't mine. That night, I made 2 decisions. First, I would resign. Second, I would stop every transfer immediately. I didn't tell my mother-in-law. It wasn't her decision to approve. Back in our living room at 6 a.m., she paced like an inspector. "How could you quit without discussing it with the family?" she said. "The family?" I asked quietly. "Are you?" She stopped. Andre looked uncomfortable. "Maybe we should all sit down." "No," she snapped. I woke up to a bank notification. No transfer. Nothing. Do you know how humiliating that is? Humiliating. I almost laughed. "Do you know what's humiliating?" I replied. "Working 70 hours a week and having nothing left for yourself." She gasped as if I had insulted her personally. "For 3 years, I continued, I supported you. I never refused. I never complained. But I never agreed to do it forever." Her voice rose. "We are family. Family supports each other." "Yes," I said. "Support, not dependency." The room went silent. Andre looked between us like a referee who didn't want to choose a side. "Mom," he said carefully, "maybe we can adjust the amount for now." "There is no amount," I interrupted. "It's over." That was the moment everything shifted. She turned to her son. "You let her control you like this?" He froze. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized something important. This was never about money. It was about power. If I worked and transferred money, I was useful. Approved. Accepted. If I stopped, I became the villain. "I am not an ATM," I said calmly. "You are his wife." She shot back. "Yes," I replied. "Not your sponsor." She grabbed her purse dramatically. "You will regret this," she said. But instead of fear, I felt something unexpected. Relief. After she left, Andre and I sat in silence. "You should have warned her," he finally said. "Why?" I asked. "So she could convince me not to." He didn't answer. I told him everything I had been holding in for years: the stress, the resentment, the pressure to perform at work just to keep someone else comfortable. "I want to start my own business," I said quietly. "I've been planning it for months." He looked surprised. "With what money?" he asked. "My savings," I said. "What savings, exactly?" He didn't know because I had never been able to build any, until I secretly opened a separate account 6 months earlier and began setting aside small amounts. I wasn't reckless. I was prepared. The truth was, I didn't quit without a plan. I quit with one. I had built a freelance consulting portfolio on the side. I had clients lined up. I had calculated 6 months of expenses. What I didn't have anymore was patience for financial manipulation disguised as family loyalty. Over the next week, things became tense. My mother-in-law called Andre daily. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she accused me of isolating him. Sometimes she hinted that his sister's health would suffer without support. Every tactic was emotional, but this time, I didn't bend. One evening, Andre came home unusually quiet. She says she might have to sell some things, he said. Then maybe she should, I replied. He stared at me. That sounds harsh. Does it? I asked. Or does it sound like adulthood? For years, I had confused kindness with obligation. Now I understood the difference. 2 months passed. My freelance work grew faster than expected. Without the corporate pressure and endless overtime, I had energy again. Creativity, focus, and for the first time since our wedding, I saw money accumulate in our own account. Not hers, ours. One afternoon, Andre surprised me. He sat down and said, "I've been thinking." I waited. "You were right. It wasn't dramatic. No tears, no apologies, just honesty. I didn't realize how much pressure you were under," he said. "I just thought, that's how families work. That's how control works," I said gently. He nodded. "I talked to Mom," he continued. "I told her we can't send money anymore." My heart didn't explode with joy. It settled, steady. "Are you okay with that?" I asked him. He hesitated. "It's uncomfortable. Growth usually is," I said. Months later, something unexpected happened. My mother-in-law stopped calling. No emergencies, no accusations. We later learned she had found a part-time job. Her sister started working too. Life continued. No collapse, no catastrophe, just adjustment. Looking back, I realized something powerful. Sometimes people don't step up because someone else is always stepping in. By quitting my job, I didn't destroy the family. I changed its balance. I stopped carrying weight that wasn't mine. And here's the truth nobody tells you. The moment you stop financing someone's comfort, you see whether they value you, or just your contribution. That morning at 6 a.m., when she stood in my doorway demanding answers, I thought I was about to lose everything. Instead, I gained control over my own life. I didn't quit because I was weak. I quit because I was done sacrificing my future for someone else's expectations. And if I had to choose again, I would still cancel every transfer. And I would still open that door at 6 a.m. But this time, I would smile. The weeks after that confrontation did not become peaceful overnight. If anything, they became quieter, and that silence felt heavier than shouting. At first, my mother-in-law tried indirect pressure. She stopped calling me entirely and focused only on Andre. Conversations would happen behind closed doors. I would hear fragments when he thought I was asleep. "She's changed you. She's isolating you from your own family. She made this decision without respect." Every sentence carefully framed to make me the villain. But something was different now. Andre didn't repeat those lines to me the way he used to. Instead of defending her automatically, he started asking questions. One night, he sat beside me at the kitchen table, staring at his phone. "She sent me her monthly expenses," he said quietly. "And," I asked, "there are things here that don't make sense." I didn't respond immediately. For years, I had seen those same inconsistencies. Luxury grocery brands, new decor purchases, subscription services she once claimed were necessary for mental health. He kept scrolling. "She's spending more than we ever sent." "Yes," I said calmly. He looked up at me, confused. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," I answered. "But you weren't ready to hear it." That wasn't an accusation. It was a fact. For a long time, Andre had believed financial support equaled love. His mother had raised him alone after his father passed away. He carried guilt for her struggles. And guilt is powerful, especially when someone knows how to use it. But guilt is not the same as responsibility. As my freelance business grew, something else changed, my confidence. I no longer woke up with anxiety. I didn't dread Mondays. I worked with clients who respected my time. I set my own rates. I chose my schedule, and most importantly, I saw clearly how much I had undervalued myself. One afternoon, about 3 months after I quit, I received a call from a former colleague. The company I left was struggling. The person who replaced me couldn't handle the workload. They wanted me back, with a higher salary. For a moment, I felt tempted. The offer was safe, predictable, impressive. Then I asked myself a simple question. Would going back solve anything? The answer was no, because the issue had never been just the job. It had been the silent expectation that my income existed for someone else's comfort. I declined the offer politely. That evening, I told Andre. They offered me more money, I said. He raised his eyebrows, and I said no. He studied me for a long moment. You're serious about this new path, he said. Yes, and you're not afraid. I was more afraid of staying where I was. He nodded slowly. I could see it, the shift in him. He was starting to respect my decisions not as rebellion, but as leadership. Meanwhile, his mother's behavior changed again. When emotional pressure didn't work, she switched strategies. One Sunday, she invited us to lunch. It was the first time since the 6 a.m. incident. The apartment looked different, simpler. Some decorative items were gone. During the meal, she spoke softly. Too softly. I found part-time work, she announced casually. That's good, Andre replied. It's exhausting at my age, she added. There it was, the bait. I stayed quiet, but I suppose, she continued, this is what independence looks like. Her eyes briefly flicked toward me. I met her gaze calmly. It takes strength to adapt, I said. She didn't expect that response. For years, she had positioned herself as fragile, dependent, sacrificed, but now she was forced into capability, and capability reshapes identity. After lunch, as we were leaving, she pulled Andre aside. I could see them talking near the hallway. When we got into the car, he exhaled deeply. She asked if we could resume just a small transfer, he said. And, I asked. I told her no. The word hung between us. Not harsh, not angry, just firm. For the first time, I felt like we were truly married, not divided by obligation. Over the next few months, our finances stabilized in a way they never had before. We created a joint savings plan. We invested in a small apartment renovation. We even booked a short vacation, something we had postponed for years because it wasn't the right time. It struck me how often, not the right time, really meant someone else needs something first. One evening, sitting on our balcony, Andre said something that surprised me. I used to think you were being selfish. I waited, but now I realize, you were protecting us. That sentence healed something inside me. Because when a woman sets boundaries, she is often labeled cold, calculating, uncaring. But boundaries are not weapons. They are protection. Around the 6-month mark, my freelance business officially surpassed my old salary. Not dramatically, but steadily. I didn't announce it. I didn't celebrate loudly. I simply transferred a portion into our long-term savings account and smiled quietly. Ironically, once the financial dependency ended, my relationship with my mother-in-law became less hostile. There were fewer dramatic calls, fewer accusations. Occasionally, she would mention work frustrations. She doesn't understand modern systems, Andre would say. She's learning, I replied. And that was the truth. When people are forced to stand on their own feet, they often discover they were stronger than they believed. But there was one final confrontation. It happened unexpectedly at a family gathering nearly a year after I quit. Extended relatives were present. Conversations about careers and finances drifted around the room. One aunt turned to me and asked, "Are you working again?" Before I could answer, my mother-in-law spoke. She left her job, she said. The tone was neutral, but loaded. Yes, I said, I run my own consulting practice now. The aunt looked impressed. That's brave. My mother-in-law hesitated. Then, in front of everyone, she said something I never expected. She made a difficult decision, she admitted. At the time, I didn't agree with it. The room quieted slightly, but, she continued, I suppose it pushed all of us to grow. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement, and sometimes, that's enough. On the drive home, Andre squeezed my hand. I never thanked you, he said. For what? For forcing change. I smiled softly. I didn't force anything, I replied. I just stopped carrying what wasn't mine. And that was the real lesson. When I canceled those transfers, I wasn't cutting ties. I was cutting imbalance. Financial support, when given freely, is generosity. When demanded or expected without limit, it becomes control. Quitting my job was not an act of recklessness. It was an act of recalibration. I recalibrated my worth. I recalibrated our marriage. I recalibrated the family dynamic. And here is the part nobody sees from the outside. The hardest moment was not opening the door at 6 a.m. It was pressing cancel on those bank transfers. Because that click symbolized something irreversible. It said, I choose myself. Not instead of family, but alongside it. Today, Our life is not perfect. There are still disagreements, occasional tension, but there is no silent resentment draining my energy. There is no hidden exhaustion behind a corporate smile. There is no monthly anxiety about how much of my effort belongs to someone else. If I could speak to the woman I was before, the one staring at herself in the bathroom mirror, exhausted and unsure, I would tell her this. You are not selfish for wanting stability. You are not cruel for setting limits. And you are not responsible for funding someone else's comfort forever. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for a family is to stop enabling its imbalance. That morning at 6 a.m., my mother-in-law came to deal with me. What she didn't realize was that I had already dealt with the hardest part, my fear. And once fear is gone, control loses its power. I didn't just resign from a job. I resigned from silent obligation. And in doing so, I finally stepped into a life that belonged to me.